Hi there, and welcome to this vendor introduction series video brought to you by the Cyberhut. My name is Simon Moffat. I'm founder and research analyst at the Cyberhut. And in these vendor introduction episodes, I get to interview super smart leaders from a whole host of identity security startups around the globe to understand a little bit more about how they are solving some of today's most prescient problems. And I'm thrilled to have Scott from RealEyes joining me. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Simon. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Not at all. No, thanks for taking some time out. I appreciate how busy it is to get products to market and change the world of identity. So I appreciate taking a little bit of time out to have a quick chat. And for those who've not seen one of these little quick episodes previously, I essentially get to ask our esteemed guests three very important questions to understand a little bit more about their mission and vision. And I always start off with the same question, which is ultimately, what is the real problem that RealEyes is looking to solve? Over to you.
Well, thank you for that setup. We are looking at, and the genesis of this problem for us was just for context, we're a computer vision company. We've been in business since 2007, and for more than a decade, we've been running a ad testing business in the context of online market research, using proprietary models that we've developed for human understanding of attention and emotion measurement, and using those on behalf of the world's largest brands and agencies to conduct studies with target audiences so you can de-risk your media spend. By virtue of doing that for years in this online market research ecosystem, we've had a front row seat to the challenges of mitigating fraud online. And that the problem that came to us that quickly bubbled up out of this experience and became something we coalesced and aligned around as the problem we're looking to solve is a fundamental infrastructure issue that we see between lightweight bot detection and heavyweight KYC. We had this realization that there's really nothing between those options. And what the opportunity we saw to solve that is this notion of better CAPTCHA, where you need to be able to verify users are real, unique humans without the friction of having to see a government ID. And a quick way to think about it is we see a lot of white space between, hey, is this a bot? And show me your passport. It's like those seem like very extreme inverse options, if you will.
They are too big. They're too big extremes, aren't they? You don't necessarily. First of all, you're not always carrying whatever, a passport or a driving license, but I don't think you should always want to release such a pretty big sort of fundamental sort of chunk of information in there as well. And it is interesting you sort of mentioned sort of KYC light and that rapidity there, I guess, which I think, possibly is emerging in things like gaming and media where you don't necessarily want to have that sort of huge KYC IDV sort of barrier there, which, as you said, it may well be relevant in some areas, but it doesn't seem like it's the right tool, if you like, for everybody.
Yeah, I think about it as it's great for those high stakes use cases where there's significant risk, and it behooves me to spend a dollar or more. Potentially, it behooves me to make the user spend 1 to 2 minutes to go through this, and behooves me to make the user go through this sort of very revealing privacy revealing moment. But there's like 99% of what we do where that's too much. And then the idea that when we look more at those current solutions, sophisticated attacks can't be stopped like traditional CAPTCHAs. Bot detection, bots are easily able to overwhelm like the latest and greatest technology. We see that when we're talking to like companies who manage ticket sales at large scale and flash sales, et cetera. You'll still have millions of bots in your waiting room, and you're looking at your stack of tools you're using and say, how does this happen? And then the idea that, well, if I don't want to do those things, I can do too much friction with KYC and lose a lot of users, or there's other tools available that are like dependent on devices. So like if I have keys on my device, for example, and the idea here being that what we've worked on and the solution we have, doesn't matter what device you're on, you're able to validate that you are generally who you're saying that you are.
Yeah, I think there's interesting use cases there around like ticket sales, and I think we are doing more online, obviously, but we're also doing more on mobile as well. And I think there's that. It seems to me that you're right. That those high risk scenarios, whatever, opening a bank account or making a high risk purchase, clearly do have and require sort of IDV and KYC stuff. But if it's regulation or even just the fact that you want to have assurance around the end user, but you're right, I don't think that necessarily works for everybody. And that sort of moves a little bit into why now. Is it the fact that, we are doing more online? It seems there's I guess, a breadth and depth of services. You mentioned ticket sales. I'm thinking gaming. I'm thinking media consumption, sports, probably another one, and music and others, where you have, I guess, very high volume of identities. And as you say, you don't want to have a big barrier because it's a very UX driven, user experience driven sort of interaction there. So is it just an evolution? Is the KYC vendors are too focused on that high risk stuff? Or why has it suddenly become a problem now, do you think?
Yeah, I'm tracking at least three forces. There could be more. The first one, I think we can point to the rise of technology. So, um, just even without mentioning AI, the buzzword of like the AI renaissance of the past 3 years, even I think without needing AI, people are programming bots who are smarter than ever before, where they're able to overcome the traditional hurdles we put up of captchas. Well, humans like our aging populations can't even wrap their head around. I thought, and even me, I'll be honest, me too. I thought I clicked all the lights, the stoplights. I thought I did the job. How are you telling me I'm not doing the job? The hurdles that we're putting up are too hard for humans and too easy for technology. And now then we say, well, cool. What about agents that are coming online? Like this year, it seems we're in a world where someone said it in a very sobering way for me. We have 8 billion humans on Earth right now. Salesforce.com is releasing 8 billion agents this year, and that's just one company. Where very quickly we're going to have to know: are you a good human? Are you a bad human? Are you a good bot? Are you a bad bot? If you're claiming to be a good bot, who has custody of you? So there's all these things happening where it's going to get very murky about who's a human, who's not, and what are your intentions on either side of that. Where it's very muddy and it's going to get even muddier. And we see an opportunity there about having a play there. The second one is regulatory pressures causing various consumer app platforms to take action. So one of our biggest customers, they had to take action rolling out our biometric solution that we're talking about because of being sued around the world for fake celebrity ads and fake celebrity profiles and people getting locked out of their accounts and they can't get back in through the manual workflows that these companies can't support operationally. So for them, it was, I'm getting sued all over the world. I have to take action. And then the second angle of that, the regulatory pressure, is age verification, where this year has also been a huge driver of new laws coming up domestically in the U.S. and internationally. And I think a lot of us are looking at the U.K. as kind of the first line of really the rubber meeting the road, to use the cliche of age verification laws becoming very real, and companies having to scramble to say, well, I need to do something. It's maybe not the best thing, but I need to take action. Because if I don't, there's existential risk there. And then that's really the next part of it. It's whether you're getting sued by governments or you have fraud on your platform, where you might lose 5 to 10% of revenue to fake accounts, to identity fraud, to all the cleanup that you have to do after that. Those are generally the things I'm tracking. I'm sure there's even more nuance there in the dynamics, but it's kind of a perfect storm of technology, risks becoming very real. Like we're not even sure right now. I've been talking to deep fake experts, which is another area we're playing in with this product, where the thought is this year there could be $1 trillion or more in loss to deepfakes, and we don't even know it yet because you can't even tell what the exposure is. So it's like everything's moving so fast. It's very confusing. There's a lot of risk and a lot of fear, but not a lot of awareness of what can be done.
That's fascinating. It's just really interesting space. And I think, as you say, it's very fast moving, and I think the impact is certainly becoming larger than it possibly was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Which I guess that pushes me to ask the final question. Really, is why RealEyes best place? You mentioned the sort of strong history there in that sort of ad space, and being able to look at the sentient and others. What is that sort of secret sauce you guys have developed, and how are you best placed to solve some of these problems?
Yeah, the secret sauce goes back to our founding. So we've been around. It's I have not been with the company this long, but the co-founders kicked this company off in 2007. And the original premise was all about human understanding. The first aspect of that became focused on ad testing, this idea of neuromarketing, like what is the relationship between a cognitive response to a stimulus like an advertisement and what happens next. So that led us on this path of attention and emotion measurement. Through that, we built a differentiating competency in data collection and doing it in an ethical way. And that whole journey has led us to some really interesting differentiation. So first off, the scale we're operating at. We entered the identity category 3 years ago through a consumer app, one of the world's largest. I can't say their name on this show, but one of the world's largest consumer apps, where we already had a relationship with them doing our leading edge AI data collection. We were helping them build avatars through our ethically sourced methodology. Through that relationship, we learned that they were looking for a face verification model, and they liked us because we already had this pedigree with them of doing data collection the right way. That led us into the identity category with them. We won their RFI. They are now operating us at a run rate of 180 billion verifications a year, which is like astronomical. So they already like held our hand, brought us into this category, and are running us battle tested at a scale that I'm not really finding many people are matching right now, of that production grade reliability and scale, where it's like several thousand times per second. Our technology is being used globally right now. From there, as I was describing our pedigree of starting almost 20 years ago with a focus on ethics, so that relates to how we treat the user, it relates to how we collect our data, et cetera. We've been validated as having the largest ethically sourced collection of faces for testing and training. It comes out of our ad testing business. And we have GDPR compliant consent giving us the rights to test and train models on those faces. It covers several million identities from more than 93 countries. What we've learned is most companies marketing face models use publicly available data sets to test and train. Those data sets index largely on lighter skin tones. It makes their accuracy numbers look very favorable, but if you double click on it, it's the causation of several years now of bad press about racist models because their models aren't fair. So we have the ethically sourced data and data provenance that satisfies regulators. And then we also have models trained on these that are leading edge in fairness across skin tones to a degree that hasn't been publicly seen before. And that was not proven by us. That was proven by this leading one of the world's largest platforms who's using our technology. From there, the accuracy that we're driving. So we're already outperforming incumbents who've been doing this for years in face verification and now in age verification, where we're better than the industry leader in age verification, but also outperforming humans in estimating ages of teens between 13 and 17, which is like the critical threshold that's coming online for new age verification laws. And then the third is privacy by design. I mentioned before, since our genesis working on this ad testing business, we've been on the leading edge of the ethics of what it means to look at people's faces through webcams. So we've pioneered consent structures for a number of years, and we've done the same here with this product. It's built into, if it's a cloud model, it's built into how we operate in the data centers. The system's anonymous. We don't store pictures of people's faces. We use face embedding, so like face math, irreversible back to the image, that is completely anonymous. And as well, ultimately we see this. It kind of dovetails to some of the earlier things we've said about the risk profiles of things. And when you said everything's going to mobile now, ultimately the journey we see for the best outcomes for the user and kind of society is our models go to the client side, where you're able to attest that you are who you claim to be and you are what you claim to be without ever having to reveal who exactly you are. By having our model plus zero knowledge proof being able to obfuscate exactly who you are, but still allow you to attest your personhood, uniqueness, demographics, etc. So I think all of that kind of compounds into how we're very uniquely positioned, and it's led to our runaway hyperscale success so far.
I think there's certainly a perfect storm. I think of having that privacy by design, the sort of high scale. We have more systems and services online. But obviously, I think there are some subtleties there, as you mentioned, ethics in there as well, and the ability to be inclusive and have a very broad sort of spectrum to be able to roll this out to every user within a community, which I think is very, very important. But I think it's a fascinating area. I think clearly, KYC and IDV, they are very high risk, very specialised, very focused. I don't see them necessarily disappearing, but I do think clearly there's this sort of more evolutionary, high speed, high scale world where we do need to apply some very modern sort of IDV, KYC light use cases. And it sounds like you guys have got the history and vision, so we use a bit of a pun there to do so. So Scott, thank you from RealEyes, taking a little bit of time out there to explain a little bit about your mission and vision. It's a fascinating story indeed. This has been another episode in our vendor introduction series. Thank you to Scott. Thank you to you for watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you.